Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name's John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we are continuing our pre-football series. We're going to talk about the AFC South today and the NFL previews. And we also will have a little bit of time to talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's the only major motorsport this weekend. And then I'm going to continue handicapping some MLS soccer. I've been studying soccer, and we've got English Premier League coming up, and I feel like I've got a good grasp on modeling for soccer. So I'm going to try my hand again at a few MLS games. So we'll see how those turn out. But before we get into our previews, let's do what we always do and update our bankroll. And you can see I started last week with a bankroll of $302, and we had 3 MLS games that I handicapped. Nashville Soccer Club was a winner, and that was plus $6 to the bankroll. And then we had the Dallas and Los Angeles Galaxy draw, and I bet a full unit on that, and that was a loss, minus $10. Dallas won 4-0. And then we had DC United at home, and that was a winner, and that was plus 120, so it was plus $12 to the bankroll. So if you do the math, that's a gain of $8 to the bankroll, so that makes our new bankroll $310. And dividing by 30, as we always do, because we're trying to remain selective in our choices, we are going to make our bet size this week going forward $10 once again, but we're heading upwards going into football, and hopefully that will help grow our bankroll through the football season. There's going to be a lot of wagering opportunities between college, pro, Canadian football. Of course, we'll have MLS through November. We'll have English Premier League if we continue with soccer. We're going to have NASCAR and Formula One. Just lots of opportunities, plus playoff baseball. And then hockey starts in October. So a plethora of sports betting on the menu before you even get to the winter sports like college and pro basketball. So having said all of that and done our bookkeeping for the moment, let us move on to our football preview. And today we're talking about the AFC South. And if you're not familiar with the divisions, this is comprised of the Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. And it is an interesting division. I think some teams are overrated and underrated, but we do have some problem children, if you will, in this division. And let's start. I'm going by the teams that I think are the strongest to the weakest. So let's start with the Tennessee Titans. And, of course, what I always do here is put the odds up for each team. You get an idea of how they are respected in the betting market currently. And you can see the Tennessee Titans to win the division plus 114, plus 114, about even money. To win the AFC plus 1288, about 13-1. And to win the Super Bowl plus 2994, or about 30-1. They are actually not the favorite in this division, but they're my favorite in this division. I feel like they are the strongest team as currently constituted. They, in all facets of the game, offense, defense, coaching. This is an interesting division because, obviously you're playing 17 games and only 6 of your games are in your division. But this division, obviously being in the South mostly, is good weather. There's not going to be too much of an inclement weather, and then the teams are pretty balanced historically. And if it's the teams, obviously if a team can take care of business in this division, depending how they do outside the division determines whether they're going to get a bye or whether they're going to be a playoff contender. However, we will talk about what I think about Tennessee in just a minute, but let's go over their roster. I always list the skill positions for you for fantasy purposes. And as you can see, we've got the quarterback is Tannehill, and I really am not familiar with their backups at all, so I'm going to say they're not strong. I could be wrong, but Tannehill has, for the most part, been a healthy, durable quarterback. There was one season in Miami when he did injure himself and missed a significant portion of the year. Running back, you got King Henry, Derrick Henry, and Brian Hill as his backup. And, of course, Henry has just been a beast. He runs people over. How many years he can continue to do that is remained to be seen. However, he shows no sign of slowing down at the moment. Wide receivers, you have A.J. Brown, Julio Jones over from the Falcons, and Josh Reynolds. And if you're a fantasy guy, you might want to target Josh Reynolds because Julio is known to miss a lot of games with hamstrings. Julio, when he does play, he gets a lot of red zone targets. Obviously, that's what you're looking for. So if he misses time and as he gets older, he gets more and more chronically injured, Josh Reynolds will see a lot more run. The tight ends are Anthony Ferkser and Josh Swaim. Swaim was kind of like their go-to tight end last year. This is a run-first, play-action, deep ball offense. I don't think the tight ends are real good fantasy options here, but they may be great for run blocking. Kicker Tucker McCann. There is no natural left tackle listed on the roster. There's only one left guard listed on the roster. The offensive line is healthy, but you just have to keep that in mind. If they do get injuries on that side of the offensive line, you're going to have people playing out of position. Could be a deficit. 3-4 defense. 2 starters coming off the IR. Starting left line outside linebacker Dupree and starting cornerback Farley are the 2 that are coming off IR coming into this season. So we do not know their exact health, but hopefully they will be, by the start of the season, be ready. The shortest depth on the defense is at safety. And for this team, can Mike Vrabel navigate the division? So this team is actually set up to compete for a Super Bowl, in my opinion. But they have to take care of business in their division. And it's something that they didn't really do last year. If they can, get their playoff spot somewhat early in the season, rest up, this team is ready to grind out a couple of playoff wins. Like I said, they're going to use their power running game. They're going to use play action. They're going to use Tannehill's escapability and execution on deep balls. A couple of years ago, they outcoached New England in the playoffs. And, Vrabel's proven that he can win big games. He made it to the AFC Championship where I believe they lost to Kansas City, or maybe it was the division round. I can't remember. But this is a team that if it's healthy at the right time and is, 2 to 3 games away from a Super Bowl, can make it happen, especially, if they get a home game. I feel like that benefits their power running game. We'll have to see. They won't have to play too many inclement games out of their division, but it would be interesting to see how they handle like a Buffalo game or a Pittsburgh game in a snow, or Cleveland in a snow environment. We'll have to see. But this is a team that I really like to make an impact this year. I don't know. It really depends who they're up against. It's one of those things where, if they have to beat Kansas City and Buffalo to get to a Super Bowl, I don't know if that's going to happen. But if they only have to beat one, maybe. We'll see. All right, and then we're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Excuse me, there we go. And to win the division, they are the favorites at -109, just a slight favorite over Tennessee. To win the AFC, 10-1. To win the Super Bowl, about 26-1. So you've got Carson Wentz coming over from Philly. Phillip Rivers retired. And then Jacob Eason is the backup. I assume he's related to former Colt Tony Eason. And then at running back, you've got some real good depth here. Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack. There's 2 problems here. Number one, from a fantasy perspective, you're looking at them splitting carries, so it's going to be tough From week to week, you might get one of those guys knowing they're going to get the full load. So you might want to stash one in your backup. But from the other, they haven't all been able to stay healthy. So Marlon Mack especially has been injured. But when he's healthy, he's been a beast. So it's nice that they have that depth. It's great for the team. It might not be great for your fantasy team. Keep that in mind. And then wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman, and Paris Campbell. Campbell coming off IR. Hilton has been a consistent yardage earner. We'll have to see how Carson Wentz does. I think it's going to help him playing in a dome. But there are very high expectations for Carson Wentz, and he's making a lot of money. Tight end is perennial all-star Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox. Doyle is a good receiving option. Once again, if you believe in Carson Wentz, that could be a good fantasy pickup. Rodrigo Blankenship is the kicker. Gosh, the name escapes me now. The kicker that retired after 24 years is no longer in Indianapolis. Only one depth piece on the left offensive line, but the entire offensive line is healthy. So the Colts have had a pretty solid offensive line the last couple of years. They've been able to run the ball and protect the quarterback. Phillip Rivers, for all the limited mobility he had, he did not, suffer an injury or did not seem to have to do too much work in the backfield. So on defense, the 4-3 front seven return all healthy, and starting cornerback Xavier Rhodes, who they signed to a $6.5 million deal in the offseason, is currently on the COVID list, so don't know if he's going to make it for the start of the season. I feel like Frank Reich is one of the most underrated coaches in the National Football League. He puts a competitive team out every year, regardless of the hand he's been dealt. And he, of course, was the offensive coordinator for when the Eagles, the year they won the Super Bowl, and then he came over to the Colts as head coach. I believe that he will make it work. I'm not a believer in Carson Wentz. If you put this team up against the Titans, I personally, as currently constituted, would take the Titans every time. That's not to say that things will not change over the course of the season. There may be injuries, there may be trades, there may be, starters or suspensions, whatever. Underrated Reich needs a good year from the quarterback. That just goes without saying. It's like Carson Wentz, what have you done for me lately? He's really going to have to show that he's a top 10, 12 quarterback in the league for them to make any noise this year. But this team was very competitive last year with Phillip Rivers, and, other than the quarterback change, it's not really changed. I mean, they took Buffalo to a 3-point game, 27-24. Now we move into some interesting territory, and we're going to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, of course, to win the division, you're going to start to see some longer odds now. 968 or about 10-1. To win the AFC, 54-71 or about 55-1. And to win the Super Bowl, 139-21 or about 140-1. Of course, these are pinnacle odds. They may vary from your local sports book. So shop around for sure. You may be able to find better. So this is a very interesting roster to me. You're going to start like all the way down, starting with the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, obviously the number one pick. And then you have Gardner Minshew, the Sex Panther. He is been the starting quarterback for the last almost 2 seasons. And you know what? He really has not performed all that horrible given the circumstances of this team. This team was in flux. They had a disgruntled head coach that was kind of playing out his contract. This is a team that regularly plays in London. It has a lot of difficulties going against it. And it's been, 3-4 years since the Jacksonville season where they made it to the AFC Championship game. It's not the same team. Most of that team is gone. So at running back, you have James Robinson, who had a really good year last year. Travis Etienne from Clemson, who I might think is a good fantasy sleeper. And then Carlos Hyde, who is an NFL veteran that has had starting roles on several teams. So then wide receiver, we have DJ Chark, Marvin Jones, and Laviska Shenault. This is where things kind of get weird. After DJ, there's not much, I believe, in the wide receiver department, especially when you get to the tight end. O'Shaughnessy is their number one tight end. And then fourth on the depth chart right now is Mr. Tim Tebow. So he is still currently considered a Jacksonville Jaguar. I don't know if he's going to make the team. I don't know if they're going to groom him for a Taysom Hill type of position where he may run, may play fullback, H-back. He may run some plays at quarterback, do an option, do a jump pass. Who knows? Become the team chaplain. We just don't know. However, if he does make the team, I'm sure they're going to try to put plays in the playbook for him, but not a good fantasy option. Kicker is veteran Josh Lambo. He's a professional. The starting center, Linder, is chronically injured throughout his career. He is off the IR coming into the season, but he is a guy that has been hurt over again. Very valuable position. They do have depth at that position, but this could be a problem for a rookie quarterback. They only have one depth piece at each guard position on the offensive line. So we have starting defensive end Josh Allen, starting linebacker Leon Jacobs, both coming off IR, starting cornerback C.J. Henderson on COVID IR currently. 4-3 defense needs to stay healthy. Obviously, those three starters, if they were not available, this is going to spell trouble for Jacksonville because the team, I do not think, is constituted to score a lot of points. I hope they prove me wrong, but this is a team that's going to have to win 21-14 games, 17-10 games, 24-21 games. You're not going to see Jacksonville score 31, I think, this season. So the big question is, do they go with youth or experience? Because in my opinion, Minshew and James Robinson give them the best chance to win now. If they're going to go for a division title this year, they want those guys starting. However, if they go with youth and they say we're rebuilding and maybe that's not our goal this year, then Trevor Lawrence is going to be your starting quarterback, and then you might see Travis Etienne become the starting running back or get half the load it carries at running back. And then you scratch your head and you go, okay, they're going to let these guys learn on the job. So from a fantasy perspective, it might be worth it to grab those guys and stash them if they do become the starters. But from a betting perspective, most of the great quarterbacks, if Trevor Lawrence turns out to be a great quarterback, you can expect a 6-11 season out of Jacksonville. I mean, John Elway, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady is about the only exception. I mean, Josh Allen, his first year was 6-10. So, I mean, from a betting perspective, this is a team you're probably going to bet against. And if their defense is healthy, you're probably going to bet unders. Just keep that in mind as you go forward. And then finally, we're going to get to the hot mess of the National Football League, the Houston Texans. And here's where you're going to find some good odds. To win the division, 25-44, about 25-26 to 1. To win the AFC, 82-02. To win the Super Bowl, 208-63, or about 209 to 1. Boy, what a mess top to bottom. Of course, you've got the first question is, what are they going to do at quarterback? They've got Deshaun Watson with about 20 civil suits against him. I don't know the actual number, but I know it's probably over 10. I heard 20, so I don't really know. But Tyrod Taylor is the backup, a pro that has really kind of gotten the shaft in his career and all the places he has been. He has started at some point but was replaced by another quarterback. Obviously Josh Allen, obviously Lamar Jackson, obviously Baker Mayfield, obviously Justin Herbert, all of those situations. I feel bad for the guy, but he may end up being the default starter if Deshaun Watson is traded. The problem with trading Deshaun Watson and getting him out of the organization is his contract is an absolute albatross. So I don't know if they want him on the field or not, but actually Deshaun Watson gives them a better chance to win. At running back, you've got David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, formerly of the Broncos, and Mark Ingram as their number 3 running back. So you might get Ingram as the goal line back and vulturing touchdowns for fantasy purposes. So you may want to think about that. But this team is basically the longest shot to win the Super Bowl. So how many touchdowns do you think they're really going to score? Wide receivers, you got Brandon Cooks, Nico Collins, and Anthony Miller. Not a lot of awe-inspiring confidence in the wide receiver department. Brandon Cooks is obviously a pro. A lot depends on the quarterback. If Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback, I don't think you're going to have a very expansive, deep passing game. Jordan Akins is the tight end, and historically, Houston has incorporated the tight end into their passing offense a lot. So could be a fantasy depth pick there. And kickers, Kami Fairbairn. He has had his issues, but kicking in a climate-controlled stadium, he should be in good shape. But he's kind of iffy from 50 plus. Lots of depth injuries at offensive line. Their starters are all healthy. Having the escapability of both Tyrod Taylor and Deshaun Watson is great. They can create unbroken plays. So they're like having an extra running back in the backfield. So I think, if the starters stay healthy on the offensive line, they're going to be in pretty good shape. This is a team that may be able to score some points depending on who's quarterback and how healthy the running backs are. So 3-4 defense, the top 2 edge rushers on IR, Merciless and Jenkins. Starting quarterback, Roby, is suspended first 6 games of the year for performance-enhancing drugs. The top 3 safeties on the depth chart are off IR, coming off IR, or are currently on IR with COVID. This is just a nightmare for the defense. The defense is not going to be able to stop points, I think. So it comes down to if the offense can manage the turnovers, because this is the type of situation that Tampa Bay had before Tom Brady, when Tampa Bay had Jameis Winston, and Winston gave up 30-something turnovers in a season. The defense was always giving up, starting with bad field position. They're already defending bad field position, and it results in a lot of points being scored, which is, scoring defense has a lot to do with the turnover situation. But this is a team that's already got significant injuries on the defensive side, is going to have trouble stopping points being scored. So these are games where you're going to think about the over, especially if Watson is still playing here. That gives them a better chance to score on offense. So definitely Houston is a team you want to look at betting overs this season, depending where they're lined. But you think they're going to be higher scoring games. And you can see I have written at the bottom, must outscore everybody to win. This is the type, they have to have a perfect year. They have to hope that all of their division rivals get significant injuries. Not that we wish injuries on anybody, but they're going to have a perfect year. Everybody's going to have to stay healthy. They're going to have career years. David Johnson, of course, is a good running back who's had trouble staying healthy throughout his career. And they're going to have all-pro seasons out of Brandon Cooks, out of their defensive players, and hope that there are no significant injuries. This is a tough league. People get hurt all the time. And they're kind of building this whole organization from the ground up, front office, coaching, and all phases of the roster included. So it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a long year for Houston. But we're always looking for value, and that's why we talk about all this stuff. Maybe you can win your fantasy league with some of these players. Maybe you can win some bets this season with some of these bad teams. So that's why we take the time to look at every one. So that's going to do it for the AFC South. You know I like the Titans the best, and depending on how healthy they are come playoff time, that might be worth a flyer for a playoff game or two, or maybe a Super Bowl championship. So we'll have another division next week, and be happy to talk about that. But before we move on to the next stuff, we're going to talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix. And I tried to check odds right before the show, and I couldn't find up-to-date odds. They took them off the board because the qualifying's coming up. Last I saw, Max Verstappen was minus 110, the favorite, and Lewis Hamilton was plus 120 at my local sportsbook. And those odds are basically, 50-50 coin flip. So we're going to talk about the Hungarian Grand Prix. Hamilton has won this race 8 times. Max has never won it. Excuse me. And Hamilton has won the last 3. However, Red Bull as a team has won this race twice. And Max has been, in qualifying, the faster car pretty much for the last month or two. At these odds, I don't like a bet at all on this race. If one of these guys goes 150, plus 150 or higher, they're so evenly matched right now. The championship race is 8 points apart. This is shaping up to be the best Formula One season since, the 70s with Niki Lauda and James Hunt. The movie Rush, if you've never seen it, is about their championship battle, where it went down to the last race of the season. This is kind of happening over again with these two guys. I would take, whomever gets plus 150 or higher, I would take that side. I feel like Max is going to get a little more leeway this week because they crashed into each other in the first lap in the last race. Lewis Hamilton was penalized 10 seconds, but he came back to win the race anyway. Max was crashed out on the first lap. So I feel like they're going to give Max more leeway if he cuts him off. They're not going to, penalize him because he technically paid the ultimate price last week with being crashed into the wall. And I feel like Lewis Hamilton has the more experience here, maybe the better technical driver here, but he may have to give him more room. So depending, on what happens, but if the odds stay anywhere near to what these are, this is a pass for me. But I am going to watch it. It's been very exciting the last couple of weeks with these races, and pit stops make a big part of it. And some drivers will pit twice, and some will pit once. And the tire, they have to use different tires, and there's a lot of strategy involved. And I find it very fascinating. I know some people don't like it, and some people don't want to get up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning to watch the race. But it's my cup of tea. So what can I say? Take the better odds. That's my advice. And then finally, I'm going to look at some MLS matches. Some are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So please check the times of the games if you're thinking about wagering on any one of these. And once again, I'm using the metric of goal differential, expected goal differential. And if you're not familiar with that, please look in my past episodes on YouTube. There's one called Expected Goal Differential Explains what it is and why it matters in sports like soccer and hockey. And I'm going to look at some of these games real quick, and then I'll give you my picks for the week. We have New York City Football Club favored by 1.13 expected goals, hosting Columbus Crew. And that's a significant number. A number over 1 expected goals means that that team is expected to win. Now, these odds are, again, three-way markets, which they include each team winning or the team's drawing. So a tie would, if you bet one of these sides, a tie would be a loss. So you have to keep that in mind when you are betting soccer. You can bet they have a two-way bet where it says draw, no bet, but the odds are significantly different. But New York City Football Club is at home and is significantly favored by the metric of expected goal differential. LA Galaxy hosting Portland Timbers, and the goal differential is expected goal differential is 0.03. It's almost a perfect tie, and you know what that means? You should bet the tie. So the tie on that game I think is like plus 290. So in that situation, I would be looking to wager on the tie instead of wagering on either team to win. The New York Red Bulls are hosting New England Revolution, and New England is only favored by about half a goal, expected goal, plus 205. However, these two teams are going in absolute opposite directions. New England has been scoring almost at will in their last few games, playing very well near the top of the standings. The Red Bulls have been just the opposite. I think they've lost 4 games in a row. I don't understand why they are favored in this game. I like New England, although I might not put a full unit on the plus 205, maybe a half a unit, but I really like New England here. Sporting Kansas City, 0.86 expected goal difference. Stronger, than FC Dallas. FC Dallas won 4-0 at home in their last game. Kansas City is second in the West, I believe, after Seattle, or they're tied, for first place in the West. I really like them at home here. Vancouver Whitecaps hosting Minnesota United. I have Minnesota United at 0.85 expected goals over Vancouver, and they're even money. Those are pretty good odds for a team that's favored by that much. MLS odds with the three-way markets usually like to give the home teams. They really like to weigh the home teams down heavier odds. So sometimes it's tough betting the visiting because the market really favors the home teams. But you can get really juicy odds. And if they're high enough, you might not even have to lay a whole unit on them. But if you really believe in it, lay a whole unit on it. Philadelphia Union hosting the Chicago Fire, and the goal differential is expected goal differential 0.05. Pretty much a tie, so that means bet the tie. So we'll probably bet a draw there. And then Toronto FC on Sunday hosting Nashville SC. I have Nashville SC as a 1.54 expected goal differential over Toronto, and they are at plus 195, and that is just screaming bet the plus 195. So that's my strongest play, so you're pretty sure that's going to end up on my picks. But you can see why that I would want to bet that game. Now, about an hour before the game start, the lineups come out, and the odds will fluctuate because people that have player-based models, where their models are put together by which players are actually on the field, change. And so the odds may change very late in the game. However, expected goal differential does not take into account the players on the field. It's the system that the team plays. And even if a player doesn't start, that does not mean he's not going to be substituted into the game at some point. So I believe that the soccer modeling, that the team formations and their shot selection has a lot to do with the outcome of the game, and not. It depends on if it's a player that leads the league in goals, obviously that's a big impact. But just pointing out that you don't find out who the starters are until an hour before the game, so keep that in mind if you want to wait before you place a wager. So finally, we're going to wrap it up with my picks, and I've got 5 picks for you in soccer. I'm going to take the LA Galaxy Portland draw plus 290 for a half unit. And then I'm going to put a full unit on New England Revolution because I'm a believer. And then I'm going to put a full unit on Minnesota United. And then once again, my model tells me to bet the draw in Philly-Chicago. I'm going to do a half unit at plus 300. And Nashville Soccer Club at plus 195. So we'll see how we do this week if our model continues to work for us. And we'll be back next week with another preview in the NFL and handicap our first football game of the year, CFL, next Thursday. I'm doing my podcast on Thursday instead of Friday, so I have some football to handicap for you for next weekend as the CFL returns to action. Very excited about that. Thank you for spending time with me this weekend, and I hope we taught you something, and let's go get some winners, and we'll see you next time as I play the outro music.